Hello and welcome back to my review of the manga Battle Angel Alita. I first experienced this series through the 2019 movie, and I thought it was pretty good. I always intended to check out the manga one day. Now, this manga was wonderful. I was blown away with how emotional, creative, and beautiful the story was. And despite the manga only being 50 chapters, it managed to make me laugh, cry, get hyped, and feel despair for these characters. I feel like a really strong point of this manga is, in my opinion, I would say it's seinen done right. It is a seinen manga, and there are certainly scenes that depict that. However, with a lot of other seinen, we see them do things like overindulge in action, violence, blood, or other mature themes. This manga uses them very sparingly, so when those things do occur, it is much more impactful. The cast of the whole manga is incredibly well written, from Alita herself to the background characters who only appear for a handful of chapters. You really can feel a genuine connection to these characters, the world, and especially Alita herself as she learns and lives through this post apocalyptic wasteland. The narrative plot is broken up into very differing and clear cut arcs, yet it all flows together very smoothly. I really enjoyed the story of this manga and how we explore the different mysteries of this world. Now, while this manga does have a bit of a lukewarm start, in my opinion, I don't think that it's bad by any means. And the events in the first portion of the manga some of them were pretty fun. And a lot of them lay great groundwork for Alita's character moving forward. Now, the ending is unfortunately not the best due to the existence of the sequel series. However, there are a few chapters that sum up the sequel series in the final volume. The art in this series is unbelievably beautiful. It's very unique and recognizable. There are just so many stunning panels and pages in this manga that are gorgeous. To add on to this, the paneling is wonderful and very fluent, as well as very prominent in the action scenes. Though emotion and action is depicted in a fight is incredibly smooth and very well done. This manga also has some really amazing fights, especially in the latter half of the story. Overall, I found this to be a fantastic manga with a great cast, amazing artwork, and a really engaging and incredible story right up until the final chapter. I really think that you should read this manga. It was far better than I was ever expecting it to be. Now, moving forward, there will be major spoilers for the series. I think that the Hugo plotline, as well as Hugo as a character, was done so much better than the movie. His representation in the movie just couldn't live up to what we have here in the manga. His backstory with his brother was incredible, and I loved his connection with Alita, and also I really liked his ending in the manga more than the movie, even though it is essentially the same thing. Ido is another really incredible character. His connection with Alita as an almost father figure to her was great to see, and his fate really was a tragic one. Once he's brought back from dying, he erases his own memories, and it really is just heartbreaking to see it play out in real time. The motorball portion of this story was honestly a lot better than I was ever expecting it to be. The antagonist, Jashugan, was another fantastic character. His dynamic with his sister was wonderful, and his death was truly legendary. I also absolutely loved his return at the end of the manga as one of Alita's last challenges. Ed, another really great character, he was a fantastic mentor to Alita, and he always stuck his neck out for her, which I really respect. His death, for me, is one of the saddest in the series, mostly just because it was handled in such an unbelievably realistic way. After the motorball section is where the series starts to really peak for me. And this is during the Zapan arc, the Figure 4 arc, and the final arc. All of these are mind blowing and an absolute joyride. And the latter two arcs I mentioned made me tear up, and they were honestly quite incredible. I think the Japan arc moved just a little bit too quickly, as I feel like the hunt for Japan should have lasted longer than a single chapter. But nonetheless, I really enjoyed it. And, the start of this arc and Japan's first death was actually a pretty good scene. And I really did enjoy Japan as a character. Professor Nova is another super interesting, memorable, and top tier antagonist. He was such a joy to witness through the story and how his actions changed or affected the narrative in such vastly crazy ways. Zapan's rampage was absolutely insane, especially when Sarah's father destroyed the bar in an effort to kill Zapan. Alita's battle with Zapan was truly an incredible spectacle. I thought the transformation of the Berserker body was just insane. I also love a lot of Alita's tactical applications in this fight. Then the ending was just beautiful, and the panel of Alita with wings was honestly just really great to see. It's a great piece of artwork. I also feel like Zapan got a rather solid ending with his dream sequence with Sarah. Even though he was a more minor character before this fight, and an antagonist at that, I really appreciate the time and care that this scene gave to his character. Then, right off the back of this, Alita is forced to leave the scrapyard, which I found to be a major development, and this is like the midway turning point of the manga. Now, I honestly thought that the story would be a drag from here until the end, as Ido is gone. Everyone that we spent time developing and making connections with, Alita loses them all, and we have to say goodbye to the scrapyard, which I personally had grown quite attached to. However, I was sorely mistaken. I read these next two arcs all in one sitting. I was so heavily invested in the plot and characters during this portion of the story. First, I want to talk about Figure 4. This man is easily the second best character in the manga. I just absolutely love this guy. He has a laundry list of incredible moments, and his back and forth with Alita is some of the best dialogue in the series. I also want to mention that I was absolutely losing my mind and I was on the verge of crying when I thought that he died. Thank goodness he didn't. Yog is probably the most tragic of the background cast, and I really want to highlight him as one of two characters that I feel like I enjoyed way more than I should have. He just wanted to make some extra money to help his family, but got caught up in all these events and battles, eventually, by the end, being nothing more than just a head. He has such a tragic fate, and I feel bad for him more than a lot of the other characters that we meet. This arc was honestly a fantastic ride, and especially getting to see Alita get some real development. And this is all topped off with the beautiful relationship between Figure 4 and Alita, and the wacky and honestly pretty cool, a great scene at the end with fish raining from the sky. Figure 4 arc is my favorite arc and my favorite portion of this manga. However, we now enter an equally good and truly spectacular final arc. The final arc of this manga was such a masterclass of a finality up until the end. And by the end I mean that final chapter. Right off the bat, the other character that I liked a lot more than I thought I was ever intended to was Den. From his all inspiring speeches, grand battle plans, the insane fact that he was a giant robot, and his heartfelt final charge towards Zalem, his character was truly captivating, and I only wanted more of him every time he was on panel. Lou, I believe that's how it's pronounced, was another fantastic addition to the cast, and she has one of my favorite connections to Alita through the series. I really like her funny and kind-natured personality, as well as her choices to help Alita towards the climax of the manga. Chaos was another standout character to me. He was very fun, and I like how he just continued to take the plot in such interesting directions. Then the twist with Den being a part of Chaos blew me away. Koyomi returning to the story gave me such a feeling of nostalgia, even though this is such a short manga. I was worried about her dying towards the end, however, I really like her ending in the scrapyard with Den's final charge, as well as Koyomi reuniting with her father. Den versus Alita was a really fun fight. Alita in the wedding dress was a super creative aesthetic, and on top of this, Koyomi joining Barjack was a very interesting twist for the climax of that fight. I'm also a big fan of their second fight. I think the sword duel with Chaos's body was a very interesting concept, and the rainstorm was an amazing set piece to that battle. Buick is someone that I feel like this manga does a great job of subverting expectations with. Again, following the trend of him being such a background cast member. And if I remember correctly, Buick is only in one or maybe two chapters of this manga. Yet, I love what they do with this guy. His past of being a serial killer was shocking to learn, not to mention how that plays into his love for photography. He's even mad at himself because he is one of the worst that humanity has to offer, yet he is to document the actions of such a noble group. The battle on the Hang War tank was nothing short of engaging. I was on the edge of my seat with each page. The death and destruction was almost unreal to witness. I also want to mention that I appreciate the use of a timer. I find it to be a subtle way to add a large amount of scale to what's going on and retrospect on the events that took place. Some other impactful ways I've seen a timer used in manga is the Gun Devil sequence from Chainsaw Man and Garo taking out the cadres from One Punch Man. Now, during the Nova segment is what I would consider to have the single most shocking page turn in the entire manga. This is when Professor Nova cuts off the top half of his head and reveals, in my opinion, the long awaited secret of the people of Zalem. I was genuinely awestruck when I turned the page. The fact that the people of the scrapyard have robotic and cybernetic bodies with human brains, while the people of Zalem have human bodies but a mere microchip for their brains, is such a simple but absolutely incredible twist that blew me away. The dream sequence with Nova was very interesting, and I thought that it made for a very fun and fantastic climax to the series. I also think that this dream sequence gives us a very interesting insight into Nova as a person, and what I guess he seemingly always wanted. This dream sequence also gives Alita some really great moments here at the end. Den's final charge through the scrapyard was a great way to wrap up the Barjack faction. Koyomi reuniting with her father was actually somewhat heartfelt, and the double page spread of Den's sword breaking against the tube that led up to Zalem was just so bittersweet, and it was tragic in a beautiful way, in my opinion. The Tower of Typheres is yet another simple, but in my opinion, a really great concept to end this manga on. It gives this manga a feeling of hope, despite all of the very unfortunate events that occur during the final arc. And I also grew to quite like Chaos a bit during this manga, so seeing him part ways with Alita, especially after their connection through the finale here, was somewhat heartfelt. Alita herself is a phenomenal protagonist, as well as character. She is no doubt my favorite female protagonist in manga. I really love and appreciate the character arc that she goes through the series. She goes through tragedy and hardship and still comes out the other side a better person. Now, the original ending to this manga is horrible. Alita being blown up is just downright a disgrace to the incredible story that came before the final chapter. I have read the epilogue ending that sums up Last Order, and it's all right. It's definitely not bad. I just wasn't a huge fan of it. Overall, this is honestly one of the best manga I've read. It features an incredible protagonist, an unbelievably strong cast, beautiful artwork, wonderful action sequences, and a very emotional and engaging story. I certainly do recommend Battle Angel Alita to anyone. I think that both seinen and shonen fans alike will have a great time with this manga. That's going to be all from me today. Bye, guys.